narratives of Indian story which need to be brought center stage.
Every week, the India Story will bring the most incisive analysis, the most authoritative voices.
India will be a significant pole in the universe of AI going forward.
India is walking tall, India's stature is different, India's voice is being heard.
And the biggest newsmakers.
This is just a start. Tokyo, we won one bronze. Paris, we won a rocket.
Good to see that, women cricket is getting more excited and everybody is looking up to that.
And these stories need to be told, and they are guided by the compass of their conscience.
From India for the world, the India Story, the show for the global citizen.
You don't know how to fix the holes in our ozone layer. You don't know how to bring the salmon back up a dead stream. You don't know how to bring back an animal now extinct. And you can't bring back the forest that once grew where there is now a desert.
You have ignored us in the past and you will ignore us again. We have run out of excuses and we are running out of time.
Show us your faithfulness. Show us your trustworthiness. Show us your honesty. Prove us wrong. We desperately need you to prove us wrong. God help us all if you fail to prove us wrong. God help us.
What happens in the world and its nations?
South Africa.
In Samarkand, Uzbekistan.
Reporting from New York for WION.
Creates ripples across oceans.
Thus things appear to be quite tense given that the protesters are just not backing down.
The federal government employees have been protesting.
So follow the news source where facts run the show. Because you are more connected than you know. Download the WION app to find out how. Stay connected with the world through WION. Like the page on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter for new alerts. Instagram for videos and images. And the website for the latest news, views, and analysis. WIONews.com. World is one.
So that's a total of 83 Lok Sabha seats. Now, coming just months before the national polls, the importance of the assembly elections only increases manyfold, revealing the mood of the electorate. And the parties are taking no chances, clearly. The Bharatiya Janata Party, which is in power at the centre, is fielding 18 Lok Sabha members in these states. They include 4 union ministers. Long-time state party workers are understandably not very happy with being bypassed. The rival Indian National Congress held extended deliberations before finalizing the list of candidates, but it could not escape upsetting its rank and file. And these are the visuals of the chaos that erupted in Madhya Pradesh BJP office. The party workers assaulting a guard of the union minister, Bhupendra Yadav, this was in Jabalpur, while protesting against the party's pick for the Jabalpur North seat. The BJP has denied tickets to 32 sitting lawmakers, including 3 state ministers in Madhya Pradesh. About 200 state BJP members, in fact, resigned this week after a former state minister was denied a party ticket. And in the state of Chhattisgarh, the ruling Congress announced 30 candidates in its first list, but 8 current lawmakers were denied tickets, triggering discontent. And then the parties are dealing with the issue of factionalism, with strong regional leaders resorting to shows of strength in order to put pressure on the top leadership. Nowhere is this more prominent than the state of Rajasthan. But the question is, why is it so hard for the parties to keep their houses in order when it comes to the issue of ticket distribution? Let's take a look at the factors that actually decide the right candidate. First and foremost, most important is the winnability factor, of course. Through their own polls and surveys, the parties zero in on the candidate who has the highest chances of winning. But a candidate's winnability is also decided by other factors. And in India, religion and caste play a significant role. A candidate who can appeal to the dominant caste or community has a higher chance of winning. But past record in office also matters for the candidate. And lawmakers with high anti-incumbency need to be replaced with others. And the parties generally maintain a status quo. The right candidate usually has strong support among the party workers as well. And the parties generally refrain from denying tickets to the candidates with a strong following. Given India's multi-party electoral system, the leaders denied tickets can defect to other parties or run as independent and run independent campaigns to scuttle the chances of their party rivals. So as you can see, deciding the right candidate is not that easy after all. And to talk more about this, we are joined by Harish Bijur, brand and business strategy specialist and founder. Harish Bijur Consults with us from Bengaluru. Thanks very much for being here. We've had a look at the factors at play when it comes to the process of ticket distribution. But help us better understand, how can parties tackle the issue of defection and the discontentment that usually comes along with this process?
Oh, well, firstly, any Indian election is a very exciting election, fundamentally because the numbers are mind-boggling, as you have already put it out there. The point is dissent, unhappiness, all part of the great election mechanism that kicks off with the announcement of seats, literally, in terms to say that which party is fielding which candidate. Sadly, for every constituency, you can only field one candidate. And therefore, there could be 9 contenders for one seat, and all 8 of them turn aside and say that we have been actually let down. And I think this kind of dissent cannot really be managed. The point is, every party has a disciplinary structure. And I think, most of the time, tickets denied means people jump out and discipline goes awry. There are terrific, examples where independent candidates who were denied tickets actually won and then defected and went back to the party. So these are the realities of the great Indian election game. And I think we're seeing it happening. Choosing candidates, winnability, of course, but then who's to decide what winnability is? Is there one survey which can actually tell you who's going to win? Not really, because there is a slip between the cup and the lip most of the time. So I think, is there a method to the madness? I don't think there is.
Right. When we just take a closer look at each of these factors, and like you said, the issue of winnability, it's very subjective as well. If you can just shed more light on how exactly this process works out internally within the party.
Okay. So typically, I worked with two of the prominent parties in the Indian context. And typically what happens is there is actually an understanding constituency-wise as to the pulse of the people. And this is done by all parties alike, the ruling party, the opposition party, and there are survey people out there going out into the grey gut of the great Indian market and trying to assess ground level reality. The data that comes out of it is only as good as the method which is employed to get the data out. Most of the time, the method is faulty, it's outsourced, and what comes up is at times influenced by certain sets of candidates even. Therefore, there's no one reliable method which tells you pre-election, maybe 6 months before the election, that this is the best candidate for you. But winnability is decided on the basis of the wave that is in existence, or the anti-incumbency wave that is in existence in any particular state. It is also decided on the factor of the dominant caste equations. India has 3,000 castes and 25,000 sub-castes. So it's not only religion, but it's caste and the subcaste. And then many of our seats are reserved, and the reserved seats need to be managed in a particular way. And therefore, research helps, but then only up to a point of time. The biggest disadvantage in assessing the pulse of the people is the pulse changes every 3 days. So, candidates need to be announced much earlier. Therefore, political parties sit down. There is a high command system in every political party, and high command decides.
Right, as you said, it's a complicated process which has several factors at play, but at the end of it, winnability being the most important one, as you just broke down for us. Thanks very much for being here on the broadcast.
Thank you.
Let's now shift our focus to the electoral contest in Taiwan. The Taiwan presidential election contenders are speaking in one voice against China. And at the heart of this story lies an investigation into Taiwan-based iPhone maker Foxconn that's been launched by China. That's something that has not gone down well with Taiwan, to the extent that this probe by China against Foxconn has become an election issue in Taiwan. We are breaking it all down for you, telling you more about the China factor at play in the Taiwan election. Here's what you should know. First things first, Foxconn's founder, Terry Gou, is running as an independent candidate in Taiwan's presidential election. The election is due to take place in January, and the probe by China has become a part of the election discourse. The Taiwan Vice President, Lai Ching-te, who is running for the ruling Democratic Progressive Party, the front-runner in this race to power, has blasted China over its probe of Foxconn, saying that Beijing should not put pressure on Taiwanese companies during an election.
中国不必要选举的时候就对台商施加压力，要求台商表态，甚至于要求台商直接支持他们所设定的候选人。 因为这是一个两败俱伤的说法。
And according to China's state-backed Global Times, officials conducted tax inspections at Foxconn businesses in 2 Chinese provinces. Authorities in China have not yet confirmed the probe. And then there is the angry response from Ko Wen-je, a former Taipei mayor who is the candidate for the Small Taiwan People's Party. Most polls, in fact, have put him in second place. He is not mincing any words while attacking China and demanding an explanation.
中国自称是世界大国，对这种事情他自己要出来解释。他到底是针对富士康，还是他全面在清查一些公司？这个他自己要解释。
Meanwhile, Foxconn maintains that legal compliance was a fundamental principle of its operations, and it would actively cooperate with the relevant units on the related work and operations. But the thing is, China's probe is directly impacting the election in Taiwan and the contenders. Terry Gou, Taiwan presidential hopeful and the billionaire founder of major Apple supplier Foxconn, is aspiring to be the next president. He no longer runs the company and is running as an independent, but he is now lying low. Just look at the timing and the sequence of events. Terry Gou's last appearance at a campaign event was on Sunday night. This was on the day the Foxconn probe was reported about by the Chinese newspaper, the Global Times, and the very next day, he cancelled an event. There was no explanation, and there were no public arrangements for Tuesday or Wednesday. And this is highly unusual because of the previous frequency of his rallies. And in the English version of the story by the Global Times, it was implied that what Beijing actually had a problem with was Terry Gou running for president as an independent. And the thing is, while this probe makes its impact felt on Taiwan's political landscape, this election also comes with far-reaching implications for Taiwan's relationship with China, just given how tensions have escalated between the two sides. Terry Gou, in fact, has said he wants to unite the opposition and blames the tensions with China on the ruling Democratic Progressive Party's hostility to Beijing. And the probe by Beijing now has the Taiwan presidential candidates uniting against China. It has been 1 year since Rishi Sunak took over the reins in the UK. The Prime Minister has come across a series of back-to-back waves of crises on the economic as well as political fronts. As Rishi Sunak completes 365 days in office, his dipping popularity raises deep concern for his party. And as per the latest YouGov polling from the month of September, Number 10's net favourability has fallen once again. And this time it has hit an all-time low. Sunak's favourability score has dipped to minus 45, which is his lowest to date. Over 68% respondents voted unfavourably for the Prime Minister. Only 23% were in his favour. And that's not all. Within the Conservative vote bank as well, Sunak has a close fight. 48% people have voted in favour of Sunak, but a substantial 47% are against his leadership. This, of course, is in addition to the 90% of the Labour Party vote bank that dislikes the current Prime Minister. And according to Sunak's woes, and adding to Sunak's woes, the ruling Conservative Party suffered huge losses in 2 by-elections last Friday. The opposition Labour parties, Alistair Stathern and Sarah Edwards, overturned huge Tory majorities in Mid-Bedfordshire and Tamworth. Following the shocking loss, Sunak is in for more trouble within the party's camp. At least 25 Conservative MPs are prepared to put in letters of no confidence against his leadership following the by-election loss. However, the fact remains that this is the most stability that the Tories have seen since 2019. And it may well be the saving grace for Sunak. Now, it's important to remember that Rishi Sunak was handed the baton in a very difficult economic phase for the UK and the political circumstances for the Tories. Lawmakers picked Sunak, who is a former Chancellor, for his credentials on the economic as well as on the political front. He was also the only choice that remained after the tenure of the former Prime Minister Liz Truss ended in just 44 days. Now, what remains to be seen is, will Sunak be able to power the Conservative Party through in the 2025 election? Let's now shift our focus to South Africa, where the country's Independent Election Commission has passed a very crucial and landmark judgment. South Africans will now be able to vote for independent candidates for the first time in 30 years. It looks like this race to power just got all the more interesting, but highly competitive as well. South Africa's Election Commission formally launched the 2024 National and Provincial Elections Program on Tuesday. Amid a slew of other announcements, the independent body has decided to allow citizens to vote for candidates who have chosen to contest independently or without party affiliation. This is being touted as a move likely to transform the country's political landscape.
This decision has the potential to change the landscape of South African politics because for the first time, people will be able to choose the kind of person they want to represent them and be able to remove them. This also means that you don't need to be popular in a political party in order for you to have a position, but rather that you just need to be popular.
And in the last parliament elections in 2019, South African voters had over 48 political parties to choose from. While this is the highest in any election since 1994, there are primarily 3 political parties that hold significant sway. The first is the African National Congress that has won every parliamentary election since 1994. The ANC came to power led by the anti-apartheid hero Nelson Mandela, who became the first black president of South Africa. Next is the Democratic Alliance that is currently the key opposition party in the parliament. The alliance secured over 21% votes in the 2019 parliamentary election. And lastly, there is the radical left party Economic Freedom Fighters, formed in 2013 by an expelled ANC leader. The EFF is the 3rd largest party by vote share. They secured over 11% votes in 2019. But the landmark decision to field independent candidates gives more power to the South African citizens' vote. Listen in to what the voters there have to say about this.
I think it would give South Africans many options to choose their own leaders for the future, because for so long we haven't been seeing enough changes, especially when it comes to young people coming into power and bringing about the changes that we need for a better South Africa. So I think this is a better chance and a better opportunity for all South Africans.
It comes down to equality and also inclusivity. So I think it's a good thing both ways.
With all eyes on the new dynamics of the electoral battle there in South Africa, our correspondent Calvin Ongmu getting us this report from Johannesburg. Take a look.
South Africa's political landscape has reached a significant milestone in the evolution of the democracy by expanding electoral participation and widening of the pool of leadership. Come 2024, the citizens are hoping they will have many options, and accordingly, they will make their mark. This is Calvin Ongmu from Johannesburg, South Africa for WION World is One.
Let's now shift our focus to the United States. Former President Donald Trump is slowly gaining ground in the blue state of New York. Here, the margin between the former president and Democrat Joe Biden has significantly reduced since 2020. And according to the latest poll by the Siena Research Institute, Donald Trump is lagging behind the incumbent Joe Biden by only 9 percentage points in his home state. And this is much less than what was reported a month ago, when Trump still trailed the Democrat by 21 percentage points. The numbers, though, still favor Joe Biden. However, Trump is gaining support in New York at his expense. The current numbers speaking of a crisis of popularity for Joe Biden. The poll numbers released on Tuesday came from the New York State registered voters between October 15 and 19, that is after the war broke out in Israel. The recent poll makes a significant question here to be asked. The recent poll also marking a significant change in New York, which is a state where Ronald Reagan was the last Republican to win a majority of voter support. That was almost 40 years back in 1984. But why exactly is Donald Trump gaining popularity in the blue state is the question. The issue of migrants' influx is seen as a crucial factor here. Nearly 2/3, that is 64% of the people surveyed, say that New Yorkers have done enough for new migrants, and they must now work to slow down that influx. And on the other hand, only 29% say that the state should accept and work to assimilate more migrants. Some 58% agree with Mayor Eric Adams that the migrant issue will destroy New York City. Let's now shift our focus to some other key developments in the race to power around the world. We're starting off with Pakistan, where the Election Commission is expected to announce the election date in November end. The dates are yet to be formally decided between the members of the Election Commission, but sources are saying that the proposed dates are between 25th to 28th January. On to Slovakia now, where leftist leader Robert Fico has been appointed the Prime Minister for the fourth time. He has pledged in his election campaign to end military support for Ukraine. President Zuzana Kaputova appointed Fico and his cabinet after his party won the September 30th election and formed a coalition. On to Poland now, where the three major opposition parties say that they are ready to form a government under the leadership of Donald Tusk. They have urged the president to allow them to replace the ruling Nationalist Law and Justice Party. That's all we have time for in this edition of Race to Power. We are taking a very short break at this point. Stay tuned. Thanks very much for watching.
BLS International is empowering the common man of India and people all around the world.
We, being a small homegrown Delhi-based company, started with a foreign embassy in Delhi